Good morning, afternoon, or evening. It is Mr. Servant, and we are going to continue with factoring today, and we will continue on Monday with a little bit more. Now, you may notice that yesterday I had Desmos open when I started. This today I don't have it open because it is not as easy to use. If you are given multiple choice, you can use it. If you are given to find an answer and you don't have any choices, then you need to use the method that we are going to do today. It comes back to our X puzzles, so make sure that you kind of refresh, but I will go over some of them. So let's go over our instructions and then do some examples. Desmos will only give you decimals which you cannot use, so that means unless you know your decimals and you know the automatic fractions, and some of them are weird and you can't really get them easily, then you have to use this method. What I'll do is I'll multiply the number next to x squared next to x squared to the number by itself, and I'll find a pair of numbers that multiplies to step 1 and adds or subtracts to the middle number, and then I will slide my leading coefficient underneath each number from step 2. Your leading coefficient, that is x squared, so if it's 3, I'm going to use 3. If it's any other number, then I'll use that. Divide or reduce the fraction, and if it's a fraction, then I'm going to move the number over. So this is called slide, divide, and bottoms up. Now, this notation right here, a greater than 1, a is the number that is next to x squared, so therefore that is why it's greater than 1. If it's 1, we can use Desmos. All the ones from today will be greater than 1. So let's start. I'm going to write my X puzzle, and then I'm going to do step 1, which is multiply the number next to x squared and the number by itself. So I have 3 times negative 10, negative 30 goes on top. Find a pair of numbers that multiplies to that, and then adds or subtracts to the middle number. Our middle number is negative 13. That goes to the bottom. And now I need to find a pair. Now, if you see, it is negative on top, so therefore I am subtracting to 13. So I'm going to look through some pairs. So I'll have 1 and 30. That goes to negative 29. I have 2 and 15. Or, well, 2 minus 15, but 2 minus 15. That goes to negative 13. So those are my pairs. And I will put 2 here. And then negative 15 over here. So that means that 2 times negative 15 gives me negative 30. 2 plus negative 15 gives me negative 13. I will show you another way to view it without the X puzzle, but we've gone over it, so I figure I will go through it. Now I'm going to write it as x plus 2 and x minus 15. Notice I made room underneath both of those, so I'll put a fraction bar. So this is this slide, divide, bottoms up. This is the slide. This is where at step 3 is what we're about to do right here. Remember, leading coefficient is next to x squared. That is 3. Go ahead and get the highlighter. So that right there, 3 is my leading coefficient. And I put it under each number. So I slide 3 under both of them. Now I divide or reduce. 2 over 3 doesn't divide evenly, and by divide I need to make sure that it goes down to a whole number. So I'm going to leave 2 over 3. 15 over 3 goes down, so I have x plus 2 over 3, and then x minus 5. 15 divided by. So this right here, this is step 4. And finally, if it's a fraction, so I have a fraction, move the number on the bottom up with the x in the factor. X minus 5, I leave that be. And then I will take 3 and move it up here. So it's 3x plus 2. And that was step 5. And that is my answer. Now what I can do is I can check my answer. So I can put a box here, multiply it, so 3x, 2x minus 5. So I'll multiply 3x squared, because 3x times x. 2 times x gives me 2x. 3x times negative 5 gives me negative 15x. And then 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Bring my leading coefficient, 3x squared. Add my diagonal, that gives me negative 13x. And then negative 10 is negative 10, and I look and they match. The only thing that's different is an x versus a k, but it's the same thing. It's just a letter. You can pick whichever letter you choose. So that is how you do this method, the slide, divide, and then bottom up, which means I take what's on bottom and slide it up. We're going to do another example. I'll be completing 4, and one that doesn't really involve the slide or the X puzzle. It's a different way to look at it. Let me go ahead and get my pen here. Alright, and we're on to number 2. So 2n squared plus 15n plus 18. So I'm going to multiply 2 and 18. That gives me 36. I'm using step 1. Step 1. Step 2. I need to find a pair of numbers that multiplies and then adds or subtracts. Well, if you look, it's positive, so I need to add to 15. So I'm going to write out 136. That's 37. Step 2. 2 and 18. That's 20. 3 and 12, that's 15. They add to that middle number. So I'm going to use 3 and 12 because that multiplies to 36 that I got from 2 times 18 and then adds to my middle number. So I have x plus 3 and x plus 12. Now I'm going to slide my leading coefficient, which in this case my leading coefficient is 2, leading coefficient, underneath both 3 and 12. Oh, I look here, I have a fraction, I can't do anything with that yet, so I have x plus 3 divided by 2, and then I have 12 over 2, that gives me x plus 6. I've now done dividing, so I couldn't reduce anything, so I have 4 done. And now I do step 5. Well, that kind of goes down here. And now step 5. I don't have to do anything with x plus 6, so I just copy it down. And then bottom number, slide it up. 2x plus 3. And that is my result. So it is up to you if you want to use the X puzzle or if you want to use just kind of listing it out. They both work the same, as they would give me the same result. But it is up to you whether you want to use it. I would use the X puzzle just because it's a little more organized. Now, we'll go ahead and do a couple more examples. I will be doing office hours tomorrow between the hours of 12 and 2:30. So I'll have my Zoom account open and you can come ask me questions about this, if we can go over problems, so that way you know, okay, and I'll put a link so that you can follow it. So let's go over a couple more examples, and then I'll finish out this video, and I'll hopefully see you tomorrow. Number 5, I'm going to multiply 6 and negative 7. So 6 times negative 7, I'm going to use my X puzzle. Negative 42. It goes on top. I take my middle number. If I have plus a, there's no number, but there is an implied 1 next to it. So I put a 1 on the bottom. I look at the top. Hey, it's negative. I've got to subtract that. So I'll subtract, and I'll list out pairs that multiply to 42. 1 and 42. That's not it. 2 and 21. It's not it either. 3 and 14. I'm still not there. 4 does not divide. Neither does 5. 6 and 7. Well, when I subtract those, I'm subtracting, so 41, 19, 11, I get 1. So I put 6 and 7 here. If you notice, when I'm subtracting, so one of them has to be negative, because positive times a positive gives me a positive. The bottom number is negative, or bottom number is positive, so I need to make the top bigger number positive, which would be 7, and the smaller number negative, because if I make the bigger number negative, the number on the bottom would be negative. Now, we're going back up here. Step 3. We're going to slide a leading coefficient after I write my parentheses. So I have x minus 6 and x plus 7. Give me a second. Okay. Just checking to make sure I'm not going over time. So I slide my leading coefficient underneath, which is 6 in this case. So I put 6 underneath here, 6 underneath here. Go back up here. Step 4. Divide or reduce. I will look. 6 divided by 6, that is x minus 1. 7 over 6 doesn't reduce, so I leave it as is. And then finally, step 5. All number on the bottom goes up with the x. So I take x minus 1, I leave it alone. 6 is on the bottom, slide it up. X, make sure you write it there. 6x plus 7, and that is my final result. So it's the same process every time. Like anything, practice, practice, practice. You will get quicker with this. And on to our last one. Do remember, you can use the box method that you learned a couple of weeks ago to make sure, or a week ago, to make sure that your answer is correct, but you don't have to. So finally, number 6, I'm going to multiply my first and last number. 6 times 8, bring my x puzzle, I got 48. On the middle number goes on bottom, so negative 19. Or you can list it out like I did in number 2, just looking for what adds or subtracts. Top number is positive. The top number tells you the operation. So over here, and nope, in number 1, it was negative, so I was subtracting. In number 2, it would have been positive, so I'm adding. Number 3, it's negative, so I'm subtracting. And then number 4, or 6 in this case, it's positive, so I'm adding to that bottom number. They just both have to be negative. So I'm starting listing out pairs that multiply to 48, and what do they add to? 1 and 48. That's 49. 2 and 24. It's 26. I'm getting closer. 3 and 16. Well, that's 19. And that's what we're looking for. Almost. I put 3 here, 16 here. However, positive and a positive combined gives me a positive. It does not give me a negative. Put 2 negatives on there. Negative, negative, multiply to a positive, negative, and a negative combined to a negative. So I'm good there. So I'll write out my pairs, x minus 3 and x minus 16. Step 3. Slide that leading coefficient. Oh, that was not my leading coefficient. Step 3, I'm sliding my leading coefficient of 6 underneath. Step 4. Divide or reduce. Well, 3 over 6, that reduces to negative 1 over 2. And 16 over 6, that reduces to 8 over 2. Or 8 over 3. Nope, I've got to fix. Remember, always go back through, double check your division. 8 over 3. Finally, step 5. I have 2 fractions in this case, so the number on the bottom comes up here with the x. I get 2x minus 1. Number on the bottom, 3x minus 8. Now, if you don't reduce one of your fractions, I would have had a 6 here and a 6 here, which 6 times 6 multiplies to 36, and that's not my first coefficient. So make sure you reduce